Hello everyone! Today we're gonna have an early view at the PB Tails Crush controller. And I gotta say, this box looks already pretty cool. This is an early box and there seems to be a typo hidden under the sticker. And the box is not only cool on the outside, but on the inside too. And I can feel a very pleasant smell. I think it's coming from this card. Yep, the card is scented. I guess it's because PB Tails has a crush on you. There is a carrying case with a controller inside. And here's the manual. The carrying case is very good, with a leather-like finish and a solid construction. Here we have the Crush controller with its cool design based on sports cars. Here's a USB cable with PB Tails brand. And there's a pouch on the case too. And here's a very close look at the controller's details. On the top you have the switch to change between X input and switch mode. And the triggers on this controller are based on the DualSense. But the overall shape of the controller is very nice, and it's unlike any first-party controller. All of the rounded curves are based on the Porsche 550 Spyder. The rubber on the analog sticks feels different from any other regular controller. It is more grippy and soft, and the finish reminds you of those old car tires. The face buttons have rubber membranes and they sink a bit flush with the shell. Pretty much like the MobaPad M9. It is not as bad as the MobaPad Cheeto, but I wish it was a bit taller, like on the DualSense controller. I sent this feedback for PB Tails, and they already fixed this for future versions. The D-pad has mechanical switches and it feels very responsive. On the right stick we have PB Tails Crush controller engraved on it. And the stick is also removable with a metallic ring for protection. And it also has anti-friction rings. The triggers are Hall effect analog triggers, and unfortunately there's no back buttons on this controller, which is understandable because they wanted to keep a clean design. They also sent 2 magnetic cases with different colors for testing. They're pretty easy to remove and replace, and you can customize your controller in many ways. Baby Tails is going to produce a lot of these magnetic cases. And even though these cases has a glossy finish, they do not get fingerprints very easily. The fingerprints will be there, but you can only see them when you shine the controller under a bright light. And even though it is resistant to fingerprints, it is not scratch resistant. I have already made a small scratch on the red case, so it's a good idea to always store your controller on the carrying case that comes in the box. When turned on, this controller will have RGB lights on the face buttons, the home button, and on the light bar under it. And this light bar has a cool effect when you press the left trigger. It simulates a brake light. The buttons also react when you press them. Holding the T button and moving the right stick lets you choose a single color for the face buttons. And the left stick changes the light bar. Additionally, with the D-pad, you can choose color presets. There's the Famicom, the Crush default, the Xbox layout, and finally the PlayStation colors. The controller is fully compatible with the Nintendo Switch, and it has gyro sensors. On the computer, the analog stick shows a perfect circularity test. And there are no dead zones in the axis. There is a small dead zone on the center, but it's not too big. The D-pad is great, and the diagonals are very easy to hit. And pressing on the center will not activate all 4 directions. When connected on the computer, the layout of the buttons will follow the Xbox layout, even though the button labels is in the Switch layout. And the T button also lets you quickly enable or disable turbo. For the polling rate test, we have 500 Hz. Disassembling this controller is also super simple. Just remove the screws on the front and then lift the back shell. On the triggers, we have metal pivots. And I noticed something interesting on the main board. It has holes for the K-Silver module, but also it has holes for the regular analog sticks modules. So perhaps if this ever breaks, you can choose to replace it with a regular analog stick module, which is much easier to find. For the battery, we have an 860 mAh battery. Here's the switches for the D-pad, the RGB lights for the face buttons, and the contacts. And here's the switches for the menu buttons. The button layout is fixed. And here's the D-pad with a nice pivot in the center. And this was the preview for the Crush controller. Since this is a prototype and an early version, I will not leave my final thoughts in this video. But my first impression is that this one is going to be a quite solid controller. You can get it now on Kickstarter for $36. The other colors are more expensive, but I wouldn't worry about those because you can get other faceplates later. All the links are in the description of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.